Hello, hello. My name is Clark Heron, aka the Harry Hobo, and welcome to episode 9 of AKA Sports. Yes, we're all the way up to number 9. Fletch, you've been a co host with me for 9 straight episodes. Hopefully, your weekend has been good. Hopefully, we can get into it a little bit earlier today. We have a lot to cover. We have a lot to talk about with MLB wildcard standings, the NFL, college football, some surprising news and notes. Not a ton out there, but a little bit of surprise from here to there, but we want to do a nice little deep dive into college football, especially in the top 10 AP poll. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind everyone that you can find us on Anchor. If you go to anchor.fm/aka sports, you can find us on multiple different websites when it comes to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker is another one out there. Simply go out there, find us, listen to us. We have changed our schedule. I want to apologize. We didn't mention that last week. We'll be posting these new podcasts every Friday at 5 a.m. It is our new schedule since the NFL season has started, and we don't want to miss any of the games that we want to talk about during the week. So, again, simply go to anchor.fm/aka sports or find us on Facebook and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aka sports FB. So Fletch, let's get into it a little bit. Let's hark back to episode 1, back when you had your mindset. You were Aaron Rodgers fighting against the Green Bay Packers. This time, however, we're going to talk about something that has kind of already been decided, but is a good topic that at least the last 10 years or so has been a little bit of the forefront when it comes to the NFL about potentially playing a rookie quarterback over a veteran quarterback. And we I decided beforehand that you wanted to side on Matt Nagy's side and defend Andy Dalton. So you'll be playing the coach here today, and I will be playing Justin Fields or Bears Nation and talking about why Justin Fields should be the starter. So, coach, since you are the coach, I will let you go first. Tell us why it is so important to have a veteran starting for your team in the NFL.
Appreciate it, Clark. Um, it's very important for a few reasons. You don't want to throw a quarterback out there if he's not ready, and if he's not ready, he's gonna have bad games and bad games. It's just gonna kill his confidence before things get started. So that's the number one thing. Number two is we brought in a veteran quarterback in order to essentially, be the go-to guy to at least start the season off, get us off on the right foot. A guy that's proven he's been to playoffs before. He's been on multiple winning teams back in Cincinnati. So that was our decision to go ahead and roll with Andy Dalton for that reason to kind of give you some veteran stability and allow Fields to really sit back and learn and develop. And that way, once we get Justin Fields on the field, we'll get the best version of him.
Nothing wrong with that. And as Bears Nation, we appreciate the fact that you went out there and got a veteran quarterback to kind of shepherd Justin Fields into the NFL. We know not every single rookie is going to be able to start right away, and we fully understand that. But we've only won one Super Bowl in our organizational history. We're one of the oldest organizations, and we're almost to the point of being, I hate to say it, almost the next Cleveland Browns, if you would say, at the quarterback position. We're soon going to be having this long list of quarterbacks that just didn't really pan out, albeit besides maybe a few years with Jay Cutler and that Rex Grossman year that led us all the way to a Super Bowl appearance. But beyond that, we're ready for the next generation of quarterback. The type of quarterback that can not only throw the ball, but can also run the football. Now, Andy Dalton may have been able to scramble back when he was in Cincinnati, but when it comes to Justin Fields, he's got the ability, he's got the mobility to move around and make the accurate throws. Yes, there is going to be some growing pains, just like with any quarterback, but it's just kind of a year after year of stagnation quarterback over and over again that we're just tired of. So allow Justin Fields to be the quarterback. Go out there, have some growing pains. He's got a tremendous defense behind him. It might take a few games, sure, but allow us to see what the future is like. We went up and we spent up for this guy. Give him the opportunity. But the great thing is, you went out and signed Andy Dalton, so if Justin Fields doesn't work out, Andy Dalton is right there to carry the load if need be. Uh, but, Coach, the biggest question is why can't Andy Dalton throw more than 15 yards down the field?
I'm with you. I'm with you, and I appreciate the feedback. However, well, to answer the question directly, this is essentially how the offense is going right now with Dalton at quarterback. We know what we had when we came into the situation. The thing is we're trying to play smart and play very secure with the football as well. So we don't want to make too many mistakes. You got to remember, you mentioned the history. I would say we're going to be a little bit further from the Cleveland Browns. Not only did the Browns have bad quarterbacks, the Browns also had bad teams that didn't win games. We were just in the playoffs last year with two quarterbacks that, yes, I will agree, are probably highly questionable. We've been to the Super Bowls with highly questionable quarterbacks. We were with a highly questionable quarterback in Grossman. We've had very good defenses throughout the years. We've had some very good skill players throughout the years. We want the same things. However, we have to be patient and wait for those things. I just don't believe that throwing a quarterback out there right now that we feel like we need to groom and get up to par and be able to not only just perform in an NFL offense, but to perform well in an NFL offense. We need to see more of that behind the scenes, and we need to make sure that when we put him on the field again, he's the best version of himself and nothing short. Because we've seen what that can do to many careers. You put a guy out there too early, next year you get a new OC in here or a new head coach. Say if I'm not here next year, then who's going to coach him? So he's going to have a whole. He started all season with one guy, then he's going to start all season with another guy. So we want to have some stability here, and that's the key. The same we want the same things, but the stability is necessary.
We can definitely agree on that. We definitely want wins. We want to be able to make the playoffs, but we just want to see what's next. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see that this weekend when Justin Fields is starting quarterback when they play the Browns over in Cleveland. But for right now, let's go ahead to agree to disagree at this point. Again, you've
Fair
already
enough.
stated in the news and notes that Andy Dalton will be the starter if healthy. We'll see if that changes if Justin Fields really puts on a show over in Cleveland. Not the easiest task to do against that Cleveland Browns defense, but we will see come Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Fletch, great job as Coach Nagy. You sounded very professional, so we will look at for more debates in the upcoming days to see if we can try and do that again in later episodes. If you, the fans, you're listening or you're watching here on YouTube, if you have some interesting comments about that debate, simply put it in the comments or send us a message. Either one. Let us know maybe what we missed, maybe what we hit on that was just what you wanted to hear as maybe a Bears fan or a Coach Matt Nagy fan, and maybe some other debate topics as well. But let's go ahead and get into the news and notes. First off, there's a new stadium that's going to be planning on being built out in Los Angeles. It is the Intuit Dome for the LA Clippers. It looks gorgeous. It looks very nice. I think it's over in Inglewood, so I think it's within that same complex as
Hmm.
I think it's the Rams' new stadium that's out there as well. Over in Inglewood, I know all those ownerships they like to get together, and I think they're planning on building some kind of huge, not so much just a stadium with parking lot, but more like multiple stadiums with shopping centers and all that. Fletch, have you heard anything else about this?
No, I mean that'd be pretty awesome. I heard Steve Ballmer talk about the toilets being great. I don't know, just I don't know. We take that with a grain of salt, but no, it's a really cool stadium. I'll be honest, I'm not really a fan of the Clippers, but this is cool for them. They can get out of Staples Center and get their own house. The ticket on this though, Clark, $1.8 billion.
That seems about right. I don't remember exactly what
Pretty penny.
the Rams stadium was going to be built for. I remember doing a project with them back in my management studies, but it was very expensive, to say the least. And I think again they wanted to build more of a huge complex. So definitely getting the bathroom is correct. That's always good. Whenever they do
Always.
studies on stadiums, they always talk about, are the bathrooms good? How was your experience? What were the prices like? So definitely looking at the fine details always a good thing. It's not always a good thing to just put a bunch of money into the statues that are outside or anything like that. That definitely helps towards the experience, but bathrooms and beer, the top two, I would have to guess, on that list. So let's go ahead and move from the new dome to some more NBA news. We have a little bit of a a trade rumor moving around. Ben Simmons and John Wall. Now, before we get to John Wall, Ben Simmons had come out and basically told the press or told the Philadelphia 76ers that he is no longer wanting to play for the organization anymore and he demands a trade. And one of those rumors happened to be maybe going to the Rockets in a package deal for John Wall. Uh, Fletch, is there anything to this? Is there any other news that you've heard of involving these off-season trades?
Um, on the fun side, I guess you can call this fun. It's always fun when tampering happens. Um, the Warriors got fined. Jacob Myers got fined. He said he didn't want Ben Simmons though, but he got fined for tampering for talking about Ben Simmons. So I think it's 50,000 is the ticket on that. I don't know, but that's the fun side to it, I guess. On the other side, I mean, John Wall and the Rockets are parting ways mutually. So I mean that's fine. That means John Wall is going to end up on a team that is probably in contention of some kind. It might be the Sixers, and that's why the link is here to Ben Simmons. The only news that is different, I think, or not so much different, but definite now, is that Ben Simmons is not even going to show up to training camp. Um, so I think what gets lost in this is really, Ben Simmons hasn't really mentioned it, hasn't said anything. I've seen the open runs this summer, and he's been at a lot of those, and he's been working on his game. And I see the jumper, but let's hope he does it in the season. That's really going to be the difference on if who wants to take a chance on him. Because essentially that's what you're doing. You're going to have to trade something of value. Might not be the 3 first round picks we were talking about earlier in the season, but you're going to have to trade something of value to get a Ben Simmons. So um, we'll see how that goes, or at least assets, valuable assets of some kind. I'm not sure, but I think Ben Simmons may land on um, a middle of the pack or lesser team. I think John Wall will end up on some type of contender of some kind. I don't know if it's going to be a playoff or a title contender. I'm not sure, but I would definitely say some type of contender. That's really the biggest news in NBA right now. Yeah,
Yeah, not too bad at all. We'll keep an eye on everything as it progresses. I know we've got NBA training camp. I mentioned off air was starting. You said the 19th,
uh, season starts October 19th.
October 19th
Uh,
season.
training camp is September 23rd, so or 28th. I'm sorry, we're recording this on the 23rd for those at home, but the 28th, which is I believe Tuesday of next week.
Yeah, not too bad at all. And just for you NHL fans, training camp's actually starting right now as of this recording,
Yeah.
and the season will start October 12th. So keep an eye out for that if you're into the NHL. Moving on to some NFL news. Three players with very different news. We'll start off with Josh Gordon. The NFLPA, which is the Players Association, stated that he has done everything that they felt like he needed to do in this offseason to prove that he should be able to be reinstated. Fletch, we've gone down this road. I can't tell you how many times. Uh, I have a feeling I know how it's going to end. How do you think it's going to end?
I hate to almost laugh. I really do. I feel like it's somewhat not right to laugh, right? But okay, in all seriousness, it's a problem. Um, he's trying to address this problem repeatedly, and I'm all for it. But yeah, man, I just don't know how long it lasts. For those fantasy football guys at home, don't waste any time on it. Let it play out. Let's all sit back as football fans and just hope for the best. Um, how old is he now?
He has to be at least, I want to say, he was 20, might be in the 30s.
Can we get a age count on Josh Gordon? Let's take a look real quick.
He's 30 years old,
30.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, let's just be. I mean, how many games has he played?
Probably less than that.
I'm curious. I'm curious. He has played in, if I'm reading this right, 63 games. That sound
Yeah,
about right. It's like what, three football seasons?
not too
Okay.
bad. It's a lot more than I thought he played, just because of how many
Oh,
times he's
facts.
he's had dealing with this issue. And like you mentioned, on a human side of things and a real life side of things, we truly hope that he can get past this addiction and just move forward and live a good, healthy life.
Definitely.
When it comes to football side of things, again, we've been down this road before.
Hmm.
Like you mentioned with fantasy football, don't even worry about it at this point. If he was 26 years old and this was a first time or second time type thing,
Go
sure,
get him.
take a chance, no problems. But 30 years old, typically once receivers get to that age, you start seeing little over the hill type issues. I don't know what kind of shape he's in, so I don't know who's going to go try and if he does get reinstated by the NFL, that has to happen first. I don't even know which team would go after him. Maybe the Seahawks again. They went after him before, uh, but we will see what happens there. Moving forward, Richard Sherman, just quick little note. There is some interest, at least from the Buccaneers, potentially adding Richard Sherman back. I know the 49ers were also in that mix of potentially adding him back due to the Jason Verrett injury that they recently had. Um, just pretty much at this point, there's some interest from NFL teams that he could potentially come back and play in the league. He is
Hmm.
older. The Legion of Boom is long gone at this point, but I'm sure he could give some type of contender, maybe like the Buccaneers, just a little bit of an extra edge when needed to get them moving forward. Do you know of any teams that would have interest in Richard Sherman?
Those are the two, and there's going to be again, it's going to be a title contender or somebody somewhere he's familiar with. Don't rule out the Jets because him and the coach have a connection. If he just wants to play football, but if you're trying to, I think Richard Sherman wants to play for a contender. He's too good of a player. I don't care how old and slow he may be at this stage in his career. He's too smart and too good of a football player. Not to at least attribute something to that level of a team, especially with, like you mentioned, injury to Verrett and San Francisco. And then, if you remember opening night, one of the corners for the Bucks had an injury as well. I think it's going to keep him out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on that and see what kind of landing spot like. But like you mentioned, I'm pretty sure that he's going to go to some type of contender. He's not going to go to some team that he'll just have to slug his way through the entire season. He's
No.
going to go and try and get himself another ring. And lastly, for NFL news, off the field news anyway, even though he has turned down multiple offers to play for multiple teams, the great Frank Gore, the ageless wonder Frank Gore, has actually
Yes.
turned down every single one of them because he wants to go into the boxing sport. Fletch, what?
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it. You know how I feel about boxing, fighting, all that stuff. I'm all for it though. I mean, we see a lot of athletes crossing over doing it right now. We saw Nate Robinson, which I mean, let's be honest, he failed, but I mean, he had tried, and that's the thing. That's the thing with the with what we miss in this is that they're trying. Like Chad Ochocinco, my bad. Um, also had a 4 round match, got knocked out in the third, got right back up, and everyone mentioned how well he looked in the ring. So I'm all for it, man. Frank Gore is a tough son of a gun too, so um, I would watch him fight.
Yeah, not a problem. It would be very interesting to see who he would fight if he ever, excuse me, gets into that point. But again, a little bit of a shocker for me. I've been a big Frank Gore fan ever since he was a 49er and came into the league. So it is a little interesting that as much as he wanted to continue playing in the NFL, just eventually give it up and then go into boxing of all things. But
That's a
we
long career though.
you're absolutely right. A lot of wear on those treads, but we wish him the best in his endeavors off the field. Let us go ahead, and that is all for news and notes. Let's go into the MLB playoff situation, the wild card standings at least. When it comes to actual divisions, the White Sox won the Central Division for the first time since 2008, so congratulations for them. But when it comes to the wild card, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We're down to very little games left in the season, and there are two really red hot teams in both red teams of that playing great baseball right now. The Red Sox and the Cardinals are just playing lights out. I think the Red Sox, at least at this point of the recording, have won 6 straight games. The Cardinals have won 12 straight and basically locked themselves into that second spot into the wild card, leaving the Reds, the Phillies, and the Padres way back, at least 5 games at this point. I don't know if it's going to be enough for them. It might be a little bit too late for them to make up that difference. But in the AL side of things, the Yankees currently have a half game lead after their win last night over the Blue Jays. The Mariners and Athletics are still a couple game and a half or 2.5 games at least out of the wild card spot at this point. It's really anybody's game between those four teams. The Yankees have been playing up and down. The Blue Jays have been playing very, very good of late. So let's keep an eye on the AL. I know you mentioned last week that you said that Blue Jays and the Yankees were going to be the two in the wild card. I had mentioned it was going to be the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. So we're still in that range. We're still
Right
there.
there, right
Um,
there.
and then for the NL, it just made it real simple. I think you said the Cardinals last week, and that was a
Yes.
pretty good bet last time I checked. They are playing
Thank you.
lights out.
12 in a
So
row.
great for them. They're playing their best baseball at the best time possible. Now, let us move on to college football. I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the AP poll, week 4 poll. Obviously, the top four, there's not really much of a change there. Oregon did jump up one spot, while Oklahoma dropped one spot. Had a good mix up for the rest of the teams. Obviously, Iowa and Penn State getting both big wins. Penn State winning at home against Auburn, moving up to number 6 in the polls. Texas A&M struggling yet again, but they are without their starting quarterback who is injured. So we'll see exactly how that offense can rally around the new quarterback. Cincinnati struggled a little bit last week with Indiana, but ended up winning that game anyway. Clemson was a little bit of the surprise. We knew that their offense struggled against Georgia, but that was a great defense at the very beginning of the season. But they also struggled against Georgia Tech, a team that they only scored 14. I think it was what 14-8 was that score.
I think so.
Yeah, so it was a very big struggle for an offense that was supposed to have the next coming of Trevor Lawrence with DJ Uga They are struggling mightily, and they have to really turn things around, especially with that one loss. They're still winning, which is a good thing. And then, of course, at number 10, we had Ohio State, who again struggled, very slow start. They ended up taking care of business of Tulsa at home. They've got Akron this weekend. But Fletch, let's do a little bit of a deep dive into this AP poll. We've got a bunch of 3-0 teams. Is there any of the 3-0 teams that you can see that just man, I just don't believe in right now.
The eye test is not there for Oklahoma for me. Um, Defensively, they're inept. Offensively, they're fun to watch. They're a show. I'll just call it like I see it. They're more of a gimmick to me. And I think with Jalen Hurts leading them and Baker Mayfield leading them, I felt like it was more of a football team. I'm not putting anything against the quarterback. I just feel like this version of them is even more of a gimmick than it was before. A high-powered offense is fun to see on TV. Not crazy efficient, just very high-powered. And then on the flip side, the defense is terrible. I'll just call it like I see it. I think Ohio State's defense isn't that good, but Oklahoma's is terrible. So out of the 3-0 teams, I mean, there's what 1 through 8 is 3-0. That's the first team that I would pick out of this list. Clark, do you have any others?
When I take a look at this list here of the 3-0 teams, I think Texas A&M could be put in that same category as well. Again, losing their starting quarterback it hurts. Their offense, you saw a huge difference between when they had him and without him. They really struggled.
Mm-hmm.
I know they scored a lot of points last game, but that wasn't really much of a competition. It should be very interesting to see. I'm just going to pull up their schedule and the upcoming schedule for Texas A&M. They've got Arkansas this weekend, which is could be an upset alert. Arkansas is ranked 16th in the nation, and then 2 weeks from now, they got number one Alabama at home. So we're going to find out very quickly just how good Texas A&M is without their starting quarterback. Later on, they'll play Auburn and Ole Miss and finish the season at LSU. But again, this weekend's going to be nice. It should be a little telling just to see how good they are against another high-ranked opponent. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then that Alabama game is huge. So I think Texas A&M for me, but I would also agree Oklahoma is on that list as well.
Yeah.
Some of the better 3-0 teams that we like is I really like what Georgia's doing. Obviously, we all both love Alabama. Oregon should have a pretty clean, easy schedule, depending unless they get tripped up in the Pac-12. Um, but we'll see. It's very early still. We'll continue to do deep dives as the weeks go along. Now let's look outside the top 10. Look out some teams that maybe are also 3-0 or maybe 2-1 that you really like that could potentially find their way into the top 10 before the playoffs get here?
Yeah, for sure. So outside the top 10, who I'm really feeling right now is Ole Miss. I just like the style of ball they play. I think it's again, it's kind of like Oklahoma where it's fun to watch, but you can tell there's much more of a system here. And I love the quarterback. Matt Corral is a gamer. He's an athlete. He can pass. He can run. He's he has some Pat Mahomes to him a little bit. I hate to say that. That's kind of a new fad, but a lot of these new quarterbacks do, and he's one of them. But yeah, I really like Ole Miss, and they're. I mean, let's keep it real, Clark. They're in the right conference to make some noise, and they're a team that really hasn't been in the mix in a little while. And it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of throwing. It may throw a couple teams off as we get down to the later parts of the season. So we'll see how the season progresses. But I really like them from what I've seen right now, and I feel like they can hang with some of the big dogs.
Yeah, nothing wrong there. I think he is the Heisman favorite at this point.
I would
Just
agree.
just how well he's played and that team has played. We'll see what they can do the rest of the season there in the SEC. I'm also going to speak on another SEC school outside the top 10, and that is Arkansas. Now they are 3-0. They got the nice win against Texas in week 2. But this next 4 games is brutal, and we will know exactly just how good Arkansas is. Obviously, they have Texas A&M at home, and then they go on the road to Georgia, and then to Ole Miss, and then back at home against Auburn, and not to mention Alabama later on in the season. Arkansas has everything laid out in front of them. We'll see just how good that team is, and really before we move outside of here, another team that I liked outside the top 10 is Michigan State for me. Their running game is very, very good. They play very good defense. Yes, they beat Miami, which is technically a ranked win, but not really because they were ranked 24th and no longer ranked. It was more of a surprise at the very beginning of the season when they beat Northwestern pretty handily. So that's really the big surprise for me. They have later on in the season, they'll be playing at home against Michigan, then on the road in the last 2 games against Ohio State, and then back at home against Penn State. So if they happen to get by Michigan and they handle their business until those last 2 games, whew, we'll see
Hmm.
exactly how good Ohio State is later on in the season because right now they still have to figure some things out. And then for Penn State, could be a top 4 team at the very end of the season with Michigan State maybe hovering around that top 10 area as well. It could be a barn burner of a game to potentially decide who wins the East at that point. It could be between Michigan State and Penn State at that time.
So really quick before we move on here, Clark, I gotta ask you, just going through this, and I mean, we're let's keep it real. We're both Big Ten country guys. Um, just going through this, I gotta ask. I'm going through. Let's do the AP poll. Iowa's fifth, Penn State is sixth, Ohio State is 10th with one loss. Wisconsin, and right here you have a cluster of Big Ten teams. 18 is Wisconsin at 1-1. 19 is Michigan at 3-0. Or yes, Michigan at 3-0, and Michigan State at 20th at also 3-0. Who do you see winning the Big Ten this year?
It is very, very interesting. I think right now the front runner in my mind would be Penn State is who I would have winning the Big Ten at this time. Still a
Okay.
lot of games to be played, so nothing's been truly decided. Iowa has one of the best defenses I've seen in quite a while. Their ability to get turnovers, at least early on in these first 3 games, is incredible just how well they play on the defensive side of the football. Offensively, they can be a little bit of a what your typical Iowa would look like. But at this point, I like Penn State moving forward. But again, they still have. Let's look at their record or look at their schedule the rest of the way. Um, they have at Iowa, which will be the big game. We'll see just how good they are and how good Iowa is. That's going to be a great game on my birthday on
Okay.
October 9th. 2 weeks later, they're at Ohio State. So again, we'll see where Ohio State is at that point. Right now, they're still kind of trying to figure some things out. Then they're at home against Michigan 2 weeks later, and then at Michigan State to end the season. So this Big Ten schedule for every single Big Ten team could literally beat each other up and really kind of knock themselves out of the playoffs. But I think as of this very moment, I got Penn State, but in 3 weeks' time, we will figure out just how good Iowa and Penn State is when they play each other in Iowa, or is it Iowa City? Is that what the place? I
Yeah,
believe
there you
so.
go. Yeah, there. Yep, it sure is. That's what I'm looking for as well. That's the one I had circled on the calendar. That's going to be the biggest, one of the biggest in conference games of the season, especially because of the week that it happens. Is it that one week before the playoff comes out, playoff ranking?
I believe so, timing wise,
Yeah,
yes.
that's important. I think there might be one week after that, but no, the committee's going to look at this game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Any one of these games, especially any of the games that Arkansas is going to be playing against those bigger SEC schools, they're going to be looking at every single one of them. Right now, the committee is only interested in teams that are easy to figure out. They don't want to
Yes,
look at, for example, a team like Ohio State. I know I'm a fan of them, but I'm going to use them because they don't know who they are right now. Their defense is in shambles. Their offense is stagnant at times. So they're not going to really pick them because they don't really know just how good they are. Whereas you look at a team like Penn State that has a nice win at home already on their resume and is looking good and looking complete. Those are the type of teams that committee will be looking at very, very heavily, especially for those first rankings when they first come out. And for the many years that I've been doing them, that's exactly the teams they look at is who have you played and have you shown us just how good you are so we can properly rank you? Because we're not going to rank you even if you're undefeated. We've seen in years past when Wisconsin and Miami, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they were both undefeated, but they were ranked eighth and ninth in the initial rankings behind a couple one-loss teams because we just didn't know how good they were. They were beating up on a lot of lesser competition. So it's always good. These schedules look a lot better than they typically do. Typically, you'd have to wait until much later in the season to find a ranked schedule or a ranked opponent on your schedule. But we should be able to find out at least for several teams before that first rankings comes out, and we'll be
for
doing our
sure.
predictions for them as well. Fletch, uh, who is? I'll ask you at this point. We talked about a little bit about the Big Ten. Who would be your favorite?
Um, My favorites are Iowa. You mentioned them. You also mentioned a lot of the reasons why is that defense. I love that defense. That's a force to be reckoned with on that side of the ball. I'll say this: if Iowa Penn State was in Penn State, I may go Penn State. That might be literally the flip for me. But the fact that Iowa will have, I believe, this win over Penn State, we'll see what the teams look like once they face off. If all teams are intact. But at the same time, is once we get to that game, I think Iowa will take advantage of being at home and win that game. And I think that's going to keep them one game in front of Penn State. I think they're in different divisions, but at least in the standings for the entire Big Ten, I think they end up at least being Big Ten regular season champs, and then we'll have to see what these teams look like towards the end of the season. But I'm just gonna roll with Iowa right now.
Nothing wrong with that. And I just took a double check. That game time has not yet been decided there in Kinnick Stadium. It would not shock me if that is the late game, like an 8, 7:30, 8 o'clock game.
I hope so.
It would be amazing if it was, especially after that third quarter, the wave to the hospital. One of the best traditions in college football,
Oh
bar
yeah.
none. Um, so, Fletch, anything else on college football before we move on to the NFL?
One thing I mentioned him last week. I'm gonna mention him again this week. Keep your eyes open for Malik Willis and Liberty. If you're a guy like me that pays attention to the others receiving votes category on the bottom of these rankings, Liberty is technically your 27th ranked team in the country in the AP poll and 26th in the coaches poll. I guarantee you next week they'll be ranked.
Yeah, and we will keep an eye on him, especially when it comes to draft time, because he is one of the higher-ended draft potential picks in next year's draft. And before we move on to the NFL, let's go ahead and thank our sponsor, weekly sponsor of Legit Framing. Once again, you've got some stuff that you want hanged up. Get it framed. It looks so good. Double matted, player photos. You can even put cards in there. You can even put your own stuff. Maybe you have some high school stuff or college stuff that you've been laying around, been hanging up in your closet that you just been waiting to find a way to show off, well, this is your chance. Legit Framing. Simply reach out to us at facebook.com/legitframing or send us an email at legitframing@hotmail.com. Get your free quote today and figure out exactly how easy it is to get your man and or woman cave looking great, especially now that we're into the NFL season, college football season. Show it off. I see a bunch of the pictures out there on Facebook showing off your man or woman cave. Fletch, I got to ask you, I know you're big in the NBA. You had mentioned before that you were looking to get into some of the framing some jerseys. What jerseys did you want framed?
Man, I'm a '90s kid through and through, man. So I gotta go with my guys that I grew up on. Kobe being number one, Iverson, McGrady, Vince Carter. I'm a big NBA head. So basically, I mean really any guards I would say from the late '90s, early 2000s would be who I'm looking at, including like LeBron, D Wade, those guys as well. So I would love to have. I mentioned to you, Clark, I have you do it for me. This is why you need to hit up Legit Framing. Clark's gonna hook me up. Once I get all these jerseys, we're gonna have them lined up on the wall as if I got these guys, their jerseys retired in my house. So once it's all said and done, I'll make sure we take the pictures and show the people at home because it'll happen.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see it as well. So once again, if you are interested and you have some things, it doesn't have to be jerseys. It could be baseballs. We could do. We've done turf before. We've even just done regular photos with a nice background as well. But simply just go to facebook.com/legitframing or send us an email at legitframing@hotmail.com. Again, legit framing. Let us create your next conversation piece. Now let's move on to the NFL Week 3 schedule. As you can see on YouTube, it is the full list. I just pulled them off of NFL.com. Tonight's game, we have the Panthers versus the Texans. And then we move on. There's a bunch of pretty good games we'll be talking about in our pick six for this upcoming season. I'm going to go ahead and just scroll through here a little bit. Another low scoring game that should be interesting to see who wins that game of the Saints versus Patriots. That should be a low scoring game there. Uh, Look to get some fantasy points with Derrick Henry against the Colts, who are without their starting quarterback of Carson Wentz. And then should be a very high scoring affair, Seattle at Minnesota, and it caps off on a Monday night game of Philadelphia versus Dallas. Uh, that being said, we have a pick six yet to do once again. We are back. Last week we both went 3-3, so you didn't gain any ground, but you didn't lose any ground at the same time. It is
Feeling really Jeff
unfortunate.
Fishers right now.
So we will see what we can do here. I've got to try and widen my lead while you try and catch up. So we've got 6 games on the board. The ones that we have chosen for this week is the Washington football team versus the Buffalo Bills, the Chicago Bears versus the Cleveland Browns, the LA Rams versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the game of the week. Then we have the Eagles Cowboys Monday Nighter, the Packers 49ers, which I believe is the Sunday Nighter, and then you have the Dolphins versus the Raiders in their last game. So, Fletch, I will let you choose first. We are going to be talking
Hold on.
about.
First and foremost, Clark. These are the kind of nights, the kind of weeks that we need double headers, primetime games like we get with the NBA schedule. Why are we watching the Bucks and the Rams at 4:30?
Hey, yeah, that's the time frame. That's what they had for their
Oh
schedule.
my goodness! And don't get me wrong, the Sunday and Monday night games are amazing as well. But let's stack them up, baby. Why are we the Bucks and the Rams? They're at look, and both of these games are West Coast. So let's go to Monday night. Let's put that bad boy at 9 o'clock. Slide the first one up to 6 o'clock. That's when the Super Bowl starts, anyways. 6 o'clock.
You could, but then you'd have to tell Jerry Jones that he will be not the only game on Monday night.
Hey man, Jerry lives to fight another day.
Yeah,
He can live to fight another day. Nonetheless,
he,
Clark, we'll get into this pick six. My goodness, that got me riled up a little bit.
not a problem. So for the first game, we're talking about the Washington football team versus the Buffalo Bills. The Washington football team, now with a new starting quarterback of Taylor Heineke, he looked pretty good the other night. He was throwing quite a bit to Terry McLaurin, and then the Buffalo Bills kind of righted the ship by beating the Miami Dolphins 35 to nothing last week. So maybe we'll start seeing the real Buffalo Bills. But in this game, who you got?
I got the real Buffalo Bills. I think they. Again, I mentioned it last week. After week one, it was kind of weird. It was almost like a fourth preseason game. And I think for Buffalo's offense, they weren't woken up yet. You got lucky and got a tough a Miami team that wasn't really ready for what they had in store. So, yeah, I think Buffalo kind of found their mojo a little bit, and I think they'll take the win.
I agree as well. Buffalo looked really, really good last week against Miami, who obviously lost to a cracked rib injury in that game, but still Buffalo dominated from start to finish, and they actually had, guess what? Running backs rush for a touchdown, three of them in that game. Shocking that Josh
Right.
Allen, of course, for fantasy purposes, Josh Allen managers did not like seeing that. They're typically used to seeing Josh Allen run all of those in. But Zach Moss had a couple touchdowns in that game, one really good one. So I like where things are going for Buffalo. I know Washington's defense is very, very good, but I don't think it's going to be quite good enough. Give me the Buffalo Bills as well. Moving on to the Bears versus the Browns. Justin Fields' first NFL start. He will be going into Cleveland in the dog pound to face off against the Browns, who have a very, very tough defense and a great running game. I have a feeling I know where you're going to go with this pick, but before you do,
Hmm.
I'm going to say I pick the Browns. I'll then let you pick who you want to go with.
I got Cleveland as well. I got Cleveland as well. The Browns are a complete football team, and you'll miss Jarvis Landry for some games, but Odell Beckham Jr. is right on time. I think we'll see, a good game from Odell. I think Baker will play good Baker football. Let's not get it twisted. Baker Mayfield's a damn good quarterback. He may not put up the numbers that you need, but the way they play, the way they run their offense in Cleveland, he does what he's supposed to do. The next thing that we need to see from him is, can you win the big games? He won a lot of big games last year to get them into the playoffs. He played a hell of a game against the Chiefs first opening night, and also against them in the playoffs last year. Um, I really like this Browns team, man, and I think it's gonna be rough for Justin Fields on his first day as a starting quarterback. But I think he'll show some bright spots. I'll say that in this first game, to where Bears fans I think will be happy at least to see that. But I got the Browns winning. It's in Cleveland as well. Is that correct, Clark?
Correct.
Yeah, Browns big.
Yeah, and as much as I would like to say that the Bears are going to help stifle that run game just a little bit, it's not going to be enough to allow Justin Fields to really shine on the offensive side of the football. So again, we both have in Cleveland, no sweat there. But I would like to see, just like you mentioned, Justin Fields have a decent game to kind of help show Bears Nation just what they're getting with their potential franchise quarterback. Moving on to the game of the week. Both teams undefeated. Your Super Bowl pick, probably your NFC Championship game between these two teams, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Rams Buccaneers. Tom Brady has thrown nine. I said nine. I believe that's the correct number. Nine touchdowns in two games. Four of them, I believe, to Gronk. I believe it's been quite a bit. I think he's gotten two in the first two games each. And then the Rams just look like, hey, this is what happens when you have a good quarterback that if you protect, he can get the ball passed around, especially to little Cooper Kupp, who is, I believe, second in the NFL in receiving yards at this point. This one I went back and forth on. I really didn't know who to pick here. Fletch, I'll let you go first. Game of the week, who do you got?
Man, I'm still mad. This game is not at 8 o'clock, Clark. Um, I just
I'll put a
remember,
note into
was
the
it?
NFL for you.
Let them know if we got weeks like this, we have to have back-to-back primetime games. Like whatever. Nonetheless, So what this game reminds me of is if you remember a few years back, I think it was Chiefs and Rams lit it up on, I think, Monday night.
Yep.
Um, and that was almost like, are we seeing the possible Super Bowl? And in this case, yes, they're in the same conference. So I do think you're seeing a preview of the NFC title game. The Rams are still my pick to win the Super Bowl. They haven't done anything this year to show me otherwise, and the Bucks haven't done anything this year to show me otherwise as well. I don't necessarily think one team is better than another at this point in time. I do think with the game, I believe being in Tampa Bay, we're only 3 games into the season. I'm going with the Bucks on this one. There's no really need to dive deep. The only thing that I will say for my fantasy guys at home: do not start Daryl Henderson. I'm not doing it. Beware of that defense and also the fact that he's injured. It's not a recipe for success. Do not start him. But yeah, that's my pick, man. Who you got?
Nothing wrong with that. Now, as for your fantasy analysts, I do have Henderson on our sleeper league, league of record. I may have to, but I really don't want
Ouch.
to. But just because, like you mentioned, with the injuries and the fact that when it comes to Tampa Bay, their run defense is very, very good, and Coach McShay has shown over the years that he has been there that he will easily go away from the run game if they have a great run defense. So, great fantasy analysts on that point. But as for the pick, again, this is the one I went back and forth on. Really struggled with this one because I love what both teams are doing. The Buccaneers defense is in Tampa Bay. They're playing great. I'm going to go with the Rams to win this game. I really think that my little Cooper Cup is going to shred it with Robert Woods. They are going to get this passing game going because that's what they're going to rely on. They're not even going to try and touch this run game. They might
Mm-hmm.
get a few yards here and there, but I think it's going to be through the air. And Tampa Bay is vulnerable. They've given up over 350 yards per game in the passing game to start off the season. It should be a very high scoring game. So for fantasy players, play who you got. Now, keep an eye on Antonio Brown. He is on the COVID list. He has to test positive twice over the next 24 hours in order to play, so he may not play this weekend. But that's the only one to keep an eye out for. Everybody else is a full go. Now, let's head over to Monday night, which is the actual Monday night game, even though you wanted the other game to be along with it. The Eagles, Cowboys, I will go first. I have the Cowboys in this one. I really like what the Cowboys are doing with their running backs. They are splitting up the work. It's still a 70-30 split with Zeke and Pollard, but they are looking really, really good, even though their defense is really beat up at this point. Um, Fletch, who do you got?
Cowboys as well, my friend. I really like them this year. I really like the offense and being a primetime game and Jerry World rolling with the boys. Divisional matchup. I do think the Eagles will put up a fight. I think it'll be somewhat of a high scoring game. I do think at some point the Cowboys will just end up outscoring them. Few notes about the Cowboys as well. Micah Parsons is a force to be reckoned with. Just want to throw that out there and mention that now. As far as the offense goes, though, I want to kind of allude to the point you made about Pollard and Elliott. We know it's like a 70-30 split. I think last game it was 42-43 snaps for Zeke, and for Pollard, I think it was like 2021, something along those lines. So Zeke owners at home, don't fret. He had 17 plus last game for you. If you're in PPR, he'll be involved. He's always on the field. A lot of these plays that you see are like almost Zeke is used as a decoy, and then they hit Pollard. They did it 2 back-to-back weeks. I've seen the play twice now. Very good play. Both went for good yardage. See during the season, they play 17 games now. That might be flipped, and you might see Zeke on one of those 30 yards up the sideline for some big points that you might need. So Zeke owners, don't fret. Um, if you have Pollard, do not be scared to play him. Is all I'm going to say. Because if you're thinking about playing him, you just better be aware of who else you might have in front of him. But that's all I mentioned on the fantasy front. I got the Cowboys winning.
Nothing wrong with that. Moving on to our Sunday night football game, we have the Packers versus the 49ers. The Packers kind of righted their ship a little bit, looked like the old Packers. Defensively, they still have a little bit of a question mark there, but Aaron Rodgers and company looked very, very strong, especially when it comes to Aaron Jones. This guy, all he does is just catch touchdown passes, apparently, at this point. And then as for the 49ers, again, well, We're not sure who's going to be the starting running back or the backup running back or the third string running back or even the fourth string running back on that team right now. It could be a mixture of just about anybody you can think of, including Frank Gore. Don't forget about his name. But at this point, defensively, they are as strong as ever. One of the better teams out there. This is going to be another very good matchup on Sunday night. For me, I've got the 49ers winning this game. Fletch, who do you got?
Good pick. Good pick. Um, Rolling with Green Bay. Rolling with Green Bay. Um, just how they played last week. I think the offense was, they had to get back on the same page, and that's the biggest thing that you just wanted to see from week one to week two. Can the offense get back on the same page? They went back to the run game a little bit. You saw how involved Aaron Jones was last week. You still had some good work from Devontae Adams, Robert Tunyon. Rodgers looked pretty good. Back there in Jones, you saved my fantasy team this week. Thank you very much. Um, but yeah, they look good. No knock against the Niners. I think we'll have a really good game. I do think these are two very very good teams. Both potential teams in my opinion. I just think the Packers kind of. I'll give them the edge due to the fact that I think they're really trying to right this ship after that week one loss. I know Aaron Rodgers likes to kind of play it cool, but that's probably in the back of his mind as well as some of the other players on the team too, just to make sure that they're playing right. And I think that's going to be enough to win.
Fair points there. Again, should be another very good game on Sunday Night Football. And then lastly, for a pick six, we have the Dolphins versus the Raiders. This one, before Tua got cracked ribs, it was a little bit more of a game at this point. I've got the Raiders winning this one. They look really good to start the season. Fletch, do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. Tua missing is the biggest kicker with this. Before that, I was like, could have an upset. Could be a big game. But the Raiders have been lights out. I really like them this year. The AFC West in general has been kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. I think we'll talk about it later. I think some of these teams may fall back to grace, but at the same time, I do have the Raiders winning this fairly easy.
Nothing wrong with that. And we'll be putting these picks on our Instagram as well as our Facebook page. So if you want to join in on the fun, just simply put a comment about who you have winning each one of those games. We'll add you to the list, and then we will see just how good you do against us. Again, Fletch is 2 points behind me at this point, and he's trying to catch up and has a good chance this week with that Rams Bucks pick. I like quite a bit, and then we'll see what happens with that 49ers Packers game as well. Let's go ahead and move on to our NFL top 10 rankings. We did one last week. Uh, Basically, there's going to be a few changes here and there, obviously, depending on how well teams do, uh, wins and losses. Uh, I will go ahead and start things off with my number 10 here. Let me pull mine up here. At number 10, this is where I finally put the Ravens into the top 10. Last week I left them out. Again, I was still kind of unsure for the most part exactly how good they were. I know offensively they can run the ball with any team out there, but I really wanted to see the passing game opened up and what they did against Kansas City in such a great game that it was. I really liked what they did. I have them at number 10. Fletch, who is your number 10 team for this week?
Yes, sir. My number 10 is the Seattle Seahawks. They took a tough L to the Titans. They got the ball first in overtime, failed to score, failed to drive, and yeah, the Titans took full advantage. Derrick Henry also had a hell of a game for those fantasy owners at home. It's like 50 something points. However, the Seahawks, they're still a good team. I think they easily could be 2-0. Had a few more things going their way. But overall, that's a really solid team. Dropped them a few spots from last week for that reason, and not enough to pull them out of my top 10 quite yet because I do think they, I ain't gonna say gave the game away, but it's more of a loss than them getting beat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they ran into King Henry last week, and it's a little early, so maybe that was a little surprising. Typically, it has to be a little bit colder for King Henry to really get running. But I like that pick. I have them as my number 9 team moving
Nice.
forward for basically most of the points you said there. Who is at your number 9?
Yes, sir. My number 9 is the Cardinals. They barely missed my list last week, and they're just proving to me that they're a hell of a good football team, and Kyler Murray's the real deal. I do think they'll the pace they've been on these first two games. I mean, they're on pace to score a lot of points. They have 72 points in their first two games. And let's not forget week one, how well they played defensively, and then last week winning a close game, showing they could pull out a close one was showed a lot of mental toughness against a good Minnesota team. So I got them at ninth.
And you were just one spot off because I had them at number 8 this week, as where I have the Cardinals. Kyler Murray is just an insane. He is a cheat code when it comes to the NFL. What he is
Yes.
doing, he is again, if he continues what he's doing, he will be the number one quarterback in all of fantasy football. He has been the number one for the first 2 weeks. For your number 8, which team do you have slated?
Yes, sir. I have your number 10, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens played a hell of a game, and they came through. Lamar Jackson showed a lot of toughness. Harbaugh showed a lot of toughness. I love the fact that they went forward to close the game. We need to see more of that. I will say though, we have seen a lot more teams, college and professional, go for it on fourth down. I just want to throw that out there since we're mentioning go for it with the Ravens and everything. So, but the Ravens have been playing very good ball. They lost a super tough game week one to the Raiders, who've been playing lights out, and then you come back and turn around and beat the Chiefs. I think that's a really good way to start the season, and especially since you had to bounce back. So I got them here at 8.
I like it. Again, this is where I put the Ravens just into my top 10. And number eight's not too bad again early on. We'll see how things progress. At number 7, this is where I have my San Francisco 49ers. Again, we talked about them a little bit earlier. Great defensively, great on the offensive side of the football. I would have them a little bit higher had it not been for the 800 different running backs that they currently have through the first uh, couple games of the season, which is typical 49ers at this point. As long as their defense can stay healthy and their offense continue to throw the ball, with Debo Samuel leading the NFL in receiving yards in the first 2 games, uh, they should be able to climb up these rankings. But I like them at number 7. Who's your number 7?
Yes, sir. My number 7 is actually the Las Vegas Raiders. I really like the way they've been playing. I had to put them in front of the Ravens, especially after they beat the Ravens. I don't think. I mean, last week I guess I had them out, or I can't remember exactly where we had them last week, but I know I had to jump them up quite a bit on the list, and also taking consideration what they were going to do last week. So that's just a really good football team. They're coached really well. I just hope it's sustainable, and I don't know if it is yet. That's my question about them: is how sustainable is this, and how good is this team really? I think it's maybe just as far as Derek Carr takes him, and as well as John Gruden coaches him. So that could be it. But yeah, what you got, man?
Actually, interestingly enough, that number 6 is my Raiders, or it is the Raiders at number 6. To most of the points you mentioned there, we don't truly know just how good they've been playing great against some pretty decent competition early on in this season. Josh Jacobs being a little banged up might hurt some things, but I think the type of offense that they run will allow either Peyton Barber or Kenyon Drake or whoever else they bring in to continue to run the things. Because Derek Carr leading the NFL in passing yards to this point, and I think Darren Waller might lead the NFL in targets. And John Gruden has come out and stated that Darren Waller is the best player he has ever coached, which is pretty bold statement, but very high remarks for a very, very good player in the NFL. He will continue to see a lot of targets on the fantasy side of things. So if you have Darren Waller, play the Walrus. He will get you to fantasy glory. For number 6, who do you got?
I have your San Francisco 49ers. I still really like them. I had them a little lower last week. Again, I love it when a team can just pull out a gritty win against another good team. They had a lot of adversity last week during that game with injury, and was still able to pull it out 17-11, if I'm not mistaken. So overall, I just really like the team. The defense is good. The running game is there. I think no matter who you put at running back, they'll be okay. I do prefer a little bit better talent there, but you still have some guys there that can get the job done. And Jimmy Garoppolo has been pretty, I would say efficient, not anything glamorous, but he hasn't really made any mistakes. So if he can do that, then you might see the team make a run like they did, back in the past when we saw a full year of a healthy Jimmy G. So I got him at number 6.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. And I just realized that our 6 through 10 rankings, they're all the exact same teams, just in different spots.
Very
So,
nice.
very nice that we are on similar wavelengths. You're not quite there yet, but we'll get you there. We'll get you to that point. Um, Moving on to the top five teams. Again, I think we might be in somewhat of an agreement yet again, but we'll see
So
where it goes. Uh, for my number five, I have the Buffalo Bills. And who do you have at your number five?
I almost feel like we may mirror to the top, but let's just see. Let's just see. Because I also have the Buffalo Bills. Um, Not a lot to say about the Buffalo Bills, man. I just think that we saw the real Buffalo Bills. We talked about it earlier. And I think you'll see more of the real Buffalo Bills. And I also think Devin Singletary is actually a respectable running back at this point.
Well, we'll see. He's been definitely been playing a little bit better of late, so
Respectable, not
yeah.
good, just respectable.
Nothing wrong with that. So yes, I like the Bills at number five. Again, they've got a chance to really move up these rankings, but really wanted to see them kind of put it all together. They started to last week. We'll see what happens in week three. At number four, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Again, we've talked in quite depth about them. I really like where they are slated right now. Obviously, with plenty of room to move up at this point. Who's at your number four?
I guess we did mirror all the way up the chain here. I have my number four as the Cleveland Browns. Um, I mean, you lost week one against the Chiefs. Not to be funny, but it was somewhat expected. Just the Chiefs being the favorites this opening night. Nothing against the Browns. However, week two, you come out, you have a decent game against um, the Texans. I mean, there's really not much to write home about with the Texans. So you handled your business there, but you are facing some adversity there at the wide receiver position, like we talked about earlier in the show. But overall, defense is great. Baker's playing good football. Running game is there. You got to think OBJ will come in and kind of fill in that void and be a really good receiving threat. And I hope we see a very good version of him again, like we did in New York. If that happens, sky's the limit for this Browns team. But I got the Browns at four.
And I like all the points you just said because Browns are my number three team. I really like how they play good defense. They've got a great running game. Their offense and passing game just needs to a little bit of work, get a little bit healthy. Landry's hurt now. OBJ is supposed to be coming back this week, barring any type of setback. But I like them at number three again, with room to move up to one of those top two spots. But I like them sitting at number three. Who is your number three?
My number three is the Kansas City Chiefs. Slid them down a spot.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
sir. Yes, sir. I mean, you take a loss. It's kind of what happens. Tough loss. Don't be wrong. Really great team, but up to that point, Pat Mahomes hadn't lost to Lamar Jackson yet. That was the first loss to Lamar Jackson. Um, I don't know how much that says. I don't think any less of Kansas City as a team, but I do think you take a loss, you take a stop, you take a step back. Um, there's a lot to be gained from the loss, but it just showed that they are vulnerable. They still have weaknesses. The fact that the Ravens were able to run the ball just like any other team that they run on, they were just able easily to run it on this team. It's two sides to that ball, and defensively is not what they are offensively. And I think so far it's proved that. We saw that last year with the Super Bowl with it being 31-9. I mean, it's just look at the points that they're giving up. Is what I want to say about the Kansas City defense, and I think that's why you're seeing. I think if you really take a look at their last, I don't know, 5 to 8 games, just look at the points per game. I did a deep dive myself. It's higher than you would like for a team that's supposed to be that good. As great as the offense is and as great as Mahomes is, that defense side of the ball needs to get a little bit better.
I can't argue with that. Obviously, they are a phenomenal team. They are actually my number two team overall. Again, offensively, you could go on for days just about how good they are offensively, and maybe that's why I still have them ahead of an undefeated team like the Rams or even a really good team of the Browns. I still really think they're really, really good. Played a very good Baltimore team uh, that just got back into the top 10 for me. So I like the Chiefs at number two. I will go ahead and say clearly my number one is now the Buccaneers. I swapped them from last week. Fletch, I'm a little surprised here. Who is your number two?
the big matchup that should be the primetime game. Number one is the Bucks, and number two is the Rams. I think these are the two best teams in football. I don't know come the end of the season, if they still will be. I'm hoping they will be because they're the bank for a hell of a playoff game. But right now, I just think they're the two most complete teams in football. They both have a very strong defense. They both have special players on defense. They both have very good offenses. They both have very special players on offense. This is a recipe for success. If you are a fantasy owner in this game, you start everyone except Daryl Henderson. Um, that these are my two teams, and I really think this is going to be an NFC title game. And again, I think at the end of the season, I just got my money on the Rams. As of tomorrow, I have my money on the Bucks. As of right now, my top 10, the Bucks are my number one team, so I'm going to stick with that. And yeah, man, I think where we differ was probably the Chiefs the most. I just couldn't keep them above the Rams in this case, but I did have to keep them above the Browns. They beat them just 2 weeks ago. So that was my reasoning.
Yeah, not a problem at all, and we'll see exactly what happens in that NFL game of the week, Rams and Bucks, and we'll see just how great of a game it is, and maybe potentially affecting your top 10 or top 5 moving forward to next week. Fletch, anything else before we wrap up here today?
No, I mean, well, just a couple things really. I just want to mention two other 2-0 teams: the Denver Broncos and the Carolina Panthers. Just be on the lookout for these two teams. Honestly, just for our general knowledge, they do have fairly easy schedules compared to other teams in the league. So look for them to take full advantage of it because these are two really good football teams. I don't know how good, but they should make some noise. Very similar to the Steelers we saw last year, running off 11 straight against somewhat of a soft schedule. Outside of that, man, I did have a few little fantasy tidbits that I wanted to write down that I wrote down that I wanted to mention. Um, a couple things for sure. Play Sutton, play Cortland Sutton. I want to mention that for people that have him and played him last week, you know why. He's going to be the number one and almost the only one in that passing game outside of Noah Fant. So just keep that in mind. He's going to get a lot of targets. And then also too, Ravens running backs. If you got them, definitely start Tyson Williams, and I'd be tempted to almost start Murray this week. They have a really good matchup. So I just want to throw those things out there just from doing a little bit of research this week. Really paying attention to matchups now that we're kind of into the season and understanding what guys are doing. That's something that folks at home should be doing as well. Just do a little bit of research, see who's playing who, check out the matchups. It's really going to help you out.
Absolutely agreed. And before we go here today, you did mention that the Panthers were 2-0, the Broncos were 2-0. Of the 2-0 teams out there, are those the two teams that you would believe in less at this point? You're just not 100% fully in on, or was there another 2-0 team that maybe you just want to see a little bit more before you really put in there as one of the better teams?
Out of those two teams, yes. I mean, those two teams, yes. I would say I'm not. I'm selling on both of them right now. As far as being as good as their record says they are, I don't think they're one of the top 7 to 10 teams in the league, but I think they could be. I got to see it. The other one that I'm going to mention is also in the same division as the Broncos is going to be the Raiders. I really like what they're doing right now. I just don't know how sustainable it is. Not saying they don't play good football. I'm not saying they're a gimmick. I'm not saying it's a bad team. It's just that this was not the same. It's not the norm for them as of late. And if they can be this, awesome. I'm all for it. But I'm just not sold. The other teams have a lot that I can bank on, if you will, with being the Rams, the Niners, the Bucks, and the Cards. They all have a very solid and firm identity.
Hey, I can't argue with that. And there's also a lot of 0-2 teams in the NFL at this point. But there is a one game that will guarantee that one of those 0-2 teams will get a win. They got the Falcons against the Giants. Fletch pick 7 this week. Just a surprise
Let's
little
go.
pick for you. Who do you have in this game if you have to pick one? And you do.
Going to Falcons. I'm going to Falcons.
Falcons. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to Falcons. I mean, with two bad teams, I just picked the lesser of two evils. We're going with the Falcons.
Hey, and I will go opposite just for conversation's sake. I like what the Giants, at least in the run game with Daniel Jones anyway, is doing. They aren't doing much. Maybe Saquon a little bit healthier. This might be a get right game for him. Who knows? Obviously, Evan Ingram's trying to get healthy and coming back in that on that team as well. Yeah, if I have to pick one, I'll pick the Giants, but someone's got to win that game. Well, not necessarily. We could end up in a tie,
Come on,
which wouldn't shock me at all at this point. But to talk back to the 2-0 teams, uh, I would say the Broncos are the questionable one. I love what their defense is doing, even though they just lost Chubb. I believe he's having foot surgery here, so he's going to be out for a little bit. They're still waiting on Jerry Jeudy to get back as well. I do like the fact that they're running their offense just how they need to just to get the wins, but they're also playing against, I think it was, the Jaguars and the Jets to start the season.
very soft
Um,
schedule.
it's a very soft schedule, and they don't have a great opponent this week either.
They
Or
have
no,
a
they're
very
playing the
soft
Jets
schedule.
this week.
Bro.
They played the Giants week one. So yeah,
Right.
another New York team, and then they go at home against the Ravens next week, which will be very telling to see exactly where they are. Fletch, as of right now in our sleeper league, right now you are, I believe, 1-1. Or did you start off? Yeah, you went 1-1. You barely won that last game. Um,
Aaron Jones.
where's your confidence level this week? That's the most important question.
I feel good. I feel good. I think that will be a good spot this year. I like my team. I like the pieces I got on my team. There's only one guy I'm worried about with as far as injury goes, and that's Josh Jacobs. Missed him last week. Had to start Naheem Hines and Aaron Jones safe. So, um, and remember, man, reason why I'm fine at being 1-1. I am 0.96 away from being 2-0.
Hey,
So
0.96. So I'll write it on your consolation trophy at the end of the year.
do it.
We will do just that. So let us go ahead and wrap up. And again, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you very much. Hit the little bell, follow us. You can see it on the screen. There are many different ways you can listen to us on podcasts. If you go to anchor.fm/AKA Sports, you can pick from the 6 different options that you have out there. Again, put some notes out there, maybe some discussion topics that you want to hear about. We will get to them and see exactly what we can do about them. Uh, as for now, my name is Clark Heron, aka the Hairy Hobo, and we're out.
Peace.